we are going to finish 626 today. So we worked up to 65, right? 65. Okay. So let's do 68. 68 says the cosine of x is negative 5 over 13. And are we on 68? Oh, Kira's, you're the problem. Okay, sorry. We've come to expect that. So the sine of x is less than 0. What is the cosine of x over 2? Now, you have to pay a little bit more attention when you do a half-angle formula. So first off, where is x? Which quadrant is x in? The cosine is negative, and the sine is negative. So I'm in quadrant 3. How do you remember that? All suckers take calculus. So the only one where sine and cosine are both negative would be in quadrant 3. Okay? So this right here is x. Okay? How big is x? It's somewhere between 180 and 270. Right? Okay. Where is x over 2? Half of that. So x over 2 is going to be somewhere between 90 and 135. Does everybody understand that? Which puts it in quadrant 2. Okay? And we have to establish that at the beginning. What trig function am I trying to solve for? The cosine of x over 2. So I want to know what is the adjacent over the hypotenuse in quadrant 2. And in quadrant 2, A is negative. It's just negative. Does everybody understand that? In quadrant 2, cosine is negative. So when I use the formula, I have an option between a positive formula or a negative formula, and I'm going to use the negative formula. In quadrant 2, I don't know any of them. You're right. But in quadrant 3, I do. What do I know about quadrant 3? This is negative 5, and this is 13. Okay? And do I need to calculate the other side? Well, look at your formula. So go to half-angle formula, the cosine of alpha over 2. It uses the cosine. Okay, now everybody needs to understand that before we move on. The formula for cosine of alpha over 2 is plus or minus the square root of 1 plus the cosine of alpha over 2. Does it rely on the opposite side? No. So I don't need to calculate that other side, but I know it's going to be negative 12 because it's a Pythagorean triplet, 5, 12, 13. But you don't need it in this case because the formula requires a cosine, not a sine. Okay? So I'm going to do the negative square root of 1 plus the cosine of x over 2. Now the reason that this is a minus is because I'm in quadrant 2. The reason that this is a plus is because the cosine formula requires it to be a plus. I want to know what the cosine is. Okay? So, negative square root of 1 plus, what is the cosine of x in quadrant 3? Negative 5/13. And I wish Cynthia would say theta. It's so much nicer if they say theta, then we don't have to worry about x or theta, but she doesn't. So this is negative 5/13 divided by 2. I need a common denominator in the numerator. So it would be 13/13. And 13 minus 5 is 8. 8/13/2. How do you cut a fraction in half? Double the bottom or cut the top in half. Which one do we want to do here? Cut the top in half. Or you could flip in times. So this is going to be the square root of 4/13. The top square roots, and I get 2/√13, and that's going to be 2√13/13. That wasn't too bad, right? I mean, there are a lot of steps. 68. I did an even. Yeah. Yes. So what this is saying, if I go back to the top, if theta is this, so right here, this angle, if theta is that angle, then the cosine of theta is negative 5/13. Okay? If I cut that angle in half, and I draw a new triangle, which is going to be in quadrant 2 somewhere, then the cosine of this triangle is 2√13. Oh, negative. I forgot the negative. Negative 2√13/13. Yes. Not necessarily. So she's asking, my original hypotenuse was 13. Does that mean that my new hypotenuse is going to be 13? That might be true with sine and cosine, but with tangent, that's probably not the case. And it could be possible. My guess is it wouldn't always be 13. I'm not sure, though. Okay, let's do the same thing for the sine. So let's just change this to the sine of, and I'm going to put theta over 2. I don't like that she uses x's. That kind of confuses things. Okay, so I'm going to delete all of this stuff. Okay, how does calculating the sine change things? My formula is going to be, first off, I'm in quadrant 2. In quadrant 2, is the sign positive or negative? Positive. So I choose the positive formula. Plus the square root of 1 minus the cosine of theta over 2. So this sign is positive because I'm in quadrant 2 and I'm looking for the sign. Why is this sign negative? That's what the formula tells me to do. Okay, but I have a problem. Oh, I don't have a problem. Never mind. No problem. Do I need to calculate this? No, because my formula uses the cosine, and I already know the cosine. Okay, so it's just going to be 1 plus 5/13/2. So the 1 turns into 13/13. 18/13. So the square root of 18/13/2. Square root of 9/13. So 3 over the square root of 13. 3√13/13. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Not really. Maybe the tangents, but I don't think it should be too much worse than that. Okay, let's say the sine of theta is -4/5, and the cosine of theta is bigger than 0. What is the sine of theta over 2? Sine is negative, cosine is positive. Which quadrant are we in? We're in quadrant 4. Okay. So this is theta, and I have a triangle here, and I have -4 and 5. Is everybody all right with that? So theta is strictly between 270 and 360. So theta over 2 lands in which quadrant? Well, it's between 135 and 180, which would be quadrant 2 again. Okay, it's actually the second half of quadrant 2. Okay, so my theta over 2 angle is going to be right here. Okay, and it's pretty easy. If you start in quadrant 1 and you cut it in half, what quadrant are you in? 1. If you start in quadrant 2 and cut it in half, what quadrant are you in? Still 1, the top half of 1. And 3 cut in half is 2, and 4 cut in half is also 2. Unless you do angles bigger than 360, which it doesn't look like they do. So, right. Exactly. Okay. Now, which formula do I want to use? I want to use the sine formula. So, am I going to use the positive formula or the negative formula if I'm in quadrant 2 for the sine? Positive. In quadrant 2, the sign is positive, so plus the square root of 1 minus the cosine of theta over 2. Okay, so let's fill that out. The square root of 1 minus, what is the cosine of theta? No, I need cosine. Cosine would be this. So I gave you an easy triangle on purpose. So this is a 3. So I'm going to use 3/5 over 2. So 5 over 5 minus 3 over 5, 2 over 5. 2 over 5 cut in half, 1 over 5. So this is 1 over the square root of 5, and it's root 5 over 5. Okay? You guys actually get this better than you did the double angles, which is weird. Huh. Well, usually double angles are easier, but... And it might be the way that Cynthia approached them. She did approach them in a little bit different way. Okay, what is the cosine of theta over 2? Well, first off, we need to look here. Cosine of theta over 2 has to be... We have to change 2 signs, actually. We have to change this sign, because cosine is negative in quadrant 2, and then we have to change this sign, because that is the cosine formula. Right. So negative square root of 1 plus 3/5 over 5 over 2. So that would be 5 over 5 plus 3 over 5 is 8 over 5. 8 over 5 cut in half. 4 over 5. The 4 square roots. 2 over root 5. 2 root 5 over 5. Everybody all right? I mean, that's a pretty simple calculation. Okay. What about the tangent? What about the tangent? So the tangent of theta over 2. Okay. So you look at your formula sheet. It's usually easier to do the first one. Well, either way, you need the sine and the cosine. But the first one's usually easier because, I guess it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're going to flip in times in both cases. So I usually just do the first one. So, and not the one that Cynthia uses in the book. So it might be that your tangent answers are not the same as the ones in the book because Cynthia used sine over cosine instead of this formula. So I'm going to get 1 minus the cosine of theta over the sine of theta. So it's going to be 1 minus, what is the cosine of the original angle? 3/5. So 1 minus 3/5 over the sine of that angle is negative 4/5. So the top turns into 2/5, and the bottom is negative 4/5. We can drop the 5s, and it's just negative 1/2. So the tangent of theta over 2 is negative 1/2. Okay. What about a secant problem? How would you do that? Just do the cosine and in the end flip it upside down. And I doubt that Cynthia rationalized. She's lazy. Okay. Yeah, I'm recording. Yeah. Hopefully Cynthia never, she's probably some really sweet lady that I've been badgering for the last 3 years. Yes. Oh, that's true. So take a look at 83. Okay. 83. So the cosine of what is equal to that formula? 5 pi over 12. Good. Right? So the one on the outside has to be half as big as the one on the inside. Okay. And then 87. 87 is just going to be the tangent formula. It's the sine formula over the cosine formula, right? So it's going to be the tangent of 5 pi over 8. Okay, and then 85 is going to be the tangent of 75. Right? The angle on the outside has to be half as big as the angle on the inside. So 85 is just the tangent of 75. All right? Okay. Get to work.